Hi everybody, my name is Barry Schwartz and this is the Search Buzz video recap. Today is Friday, July 26th, and it's the news we covered over at the Search Engine Roundtable at seroundtable.com over the past week. First up, it seems like that Google Maverick update or the Google updates over the past week and a half or so, when it first started about a week ago Friday, that it's starting to slow down a bit. Google has still not confirmed or discussed any of this outside of John Mueller saying, we're aware of the blog posts, we're aware of the tweets, we're aware of the questions, but basically he has said nothing about it. Or again, around July 12th, July 11th, 12th, and 13th, July 16th-ish, and then a big one on July 18th. Again, Google has not really commented anything about it, but it is what it is, and hopefully we'll see what happens from there. Google had some very interesting, John Mueller had some very interesting responses to questions this week in his Google Hangout from, I believe, Tuesday, I believe. One of those things was Google's basically hinted that they're able to figure out what users want and like based on comparing your content to others. So I asked John Mueller, if you were a search algorithm, because you can't say, what is Google doing? What is the Google search algorithm doing? I asked him, I believe, if you were a search engine, what signals would you use specifically to figure out if a user likes this website based on user experience and user behavior? And he said, and let me read it to you. He basically, I'm not gonna go through the whole thing, but it basically says, I probably would have to think about that for a bit. He said, if there's something where if you have an overview of the whole entire web or kind of a large part of the web and you see which types of content is reasonable for which types of content, then that is something where you can potentially infer from that. Like for a particular topic, we need to cover these subtopics when we're covering this main topic. I'm paraphrasing. We also need to add this types of information because other content on the web also adds that information. Paraphrasing. We need to add these images or fewer images because other sites in that topic do that as well. Then he says that is something that you could look at, something like this. But he said, I'm sure our algorithms are quite a bit more complicated than that and so forth. So basically, he's basically saying, we know content on this specific topic is something that, 200 other sites cover well. Your site's covering it maybe not as well as those because they're covering these subtopics. They have these images. They don't have these images. They do this. They cover that information. You don't have that. And because of that, we maybe judge your site as something not as good. Very interesting to see. And then another thing that came up is that he suggested that YMYL sites, specifically with like medical stuff, should have an expert write or review that content. He said, basically, if you do not have an expert writing or reviewing that content, you're already on a shaky foundation. He said you want to make sure that the content is correct and is trustworthy, and the only way to really do that is to have an expert either review or write that content. And that's, again, really backing up a lot of what was said around YMOL, medic updates and stuff like that, where you have to have not a necessary doctor write it, or maybe you do need a doctor to write it, but you need at least a doctor to review it and give their stamp of approval. Very interesting. Definitely take a look at that. Another interesting thing that came up, at least last night, this morning, was that Ryan Moulton, who's a search engineer at Google for the past, I think 13 plus years, still works at Google, and he says he specifically wrote that he's aware of everything that controls how web pages are ranked in Google search. And he said, if I ever encountered a system that was designed to alter the results for political reasons, that he would resign, he said. This is in response to somebody in a Hacker News thing saying that Google has clear political bias in their search results. And he said, no, it's not the case. I know everything that's going on in the search algorithm, which is pretty amazing to hear somebody say that. And if he ever encountered or walked by or saw something in the code that would actually alter the search results for political reasons, he said he would resign. Very interesting for him to say that. And I like to hear that, so that's really good. I wish Google would say things more like that over and over again. It seems like the Google search results are, again, having indexing issues for some publishers. Google's John Mueller responded to some publishers, I think in .de in Germany domains and other domains, where they're having indexing issues getting indexed. Some examples were given. It's not widespread, so I wouldn't worry too much about it, but it's hard to see. It's hard to see people doing that again. Google's another bug with Google's search results were kind of being half cut off. Basically, the issue was with, I think, the Google Android search app, where half the page wasn't being rendered. So here's the result, and as you scroll, there, it's gone. And there's the bottom of the page. Google said they're working on it, and as of last night, Google actually confirmed they fixed it, and I can't see any other suggestions that there is still a bug. Nobody's really complaining about it anymore, but Google did say this appears to have been fully resolved, and they said this around 5 p.m. last night, so the bug was about, I think, 3 or 4 days, depending on for the first time it was actually noticed. Google launched something they announced, and we saw them testing for several months, where you're on the Google image results and you swipe up on AMP articles, you would actually get an AMP article. So you click on a result, like this one, and when you click on it, you can actually swipe up the article. It has to be AMP-based, and then you'll get more information about this image in that article. It's called Swipe to View. Google's been testing this for several months, announced it at Google I/O, and now it's launched. And with that, Google made a little note at the Google Webmaster blog that when this does launch in the next couple weeks or so, Google's going to be adding the ability in the Google Search Console to see in the performance report a new filter for AMP, specifically for AMP on image results. So I suspect in the search appearance report, you'll be able to click on over here, AMP on image results. I'm not sure where it's going to be exactly. I made this up myself. And you'll be able to see more information about how your articles are getting traffic from Google image results from this swipe feature. Google said, I guess it's pretty obvious, that they ignore redirect loops. Again, a redirect loop is something where if you have page A pointing into page B, and then page B pointing to page A, it basically goes back and forth, and it's kind of a bug. Browsers can't render it. They just break down. This is like, they don't know what to do with it. And Google obviously doesn't know what to do with it because it just sends you in a loop and you don't want that. I'm not sure why that would be confusing for people, but that's makes a lot of sense. Google still is working hard with the Google Search Console team, like I showed the AMP thing, but they're working hard. According to John Mueller, I asked him what's the status and any new cool features that are coming, and he said, yeah, they're busy, very busy at work with 1, creating new features, and 2, migrating old features over. So you can definitely expect, I believe, Google to migrate that URL parameter tool and the international targeting tools and other stuff around that, hreflang and stuff like that. I wouldn't be surprised if that comes out fairly soon. Google's feature snippets could actually go ahead and use YouTube descriptions. This is kind of crazy because I saw a video with maybe a 2-line YouTube description, and Google's actually using that for a featured snippet. Here it is. You can see here, it's from YouTube, and this is the whole description of YouTube. I prefer when they use the suggested clips because those are really cool and they kind of zone you in, and I actually used it last night. I had a washing machine problem. Very, very useful to get a video on how to fix things and just skip all the introduction stuff and just get to the bulk of the information. Google says it has restored the broken reviews in Google Maps, Google Local, Google My Business results. It says it restored it. A lot of people saying it hasn't restored it, but again, Google has said they restored those broken reviews. So that's good to see. Google also suggests the short names suspension bug will be fixed within 48 hours. What you should see any minute now when you on search engine land is that Google said, no, whoever wrote this comment is wrong. So this is basically Google DMing from the Google My Business account, somebody that's saying that we appreciate your patience with this issue, blah, blah, blah. The technical issue with connected to short names that is in progress of being fixed should be fixed within 48 hours. But Google told Greg Sterling specifically that it's not an issue. We fixed the issue. I'm not sure what this person's talking about. So in Search Engine Land should be an article there in probably now. Hopefully they published it. So I don't know exactly what's going on, but it seems like the Google My Business team doesn't have things so straight. On the Google Local front, Google launched a new UI, new treatment for getting a quote button. So now service businesses like Sterling Sky and stuff like that, you can get a quote. Now on desktop is actually a big blue button. And this is for service level businesses that have Google messaging on. So very, very in your face, prominent call to actions there in Google Local. Google is testing a new tabs for local branded packs and also the carousel stuff. So this is like basically more things you can scroll for branded results, and also the carousel stuff with new UIs like buttons here and so forth is definitely being tested, and a lot of things are being tested here, of course, with the Google Local UI is constantly being tested. Google launched new a new developer doc specifically for JavaScript SEO basics. Nothing really crazy, but you should definitely take a look at that. It goes through some basics around JavaScript SEO. Google's actually going to update that based on some feedback from SEOs. The Google Knowledge Panels seems to have a new feature around scholars. So if you do a search for a certain query, you get kind of like a scholar, Google Scholar results, a Google Scholar profile, books they wrote, H-index, citations, and publications. And I believe this is new. It's kind of like a Google Author Knowledge Panel, but specifically around scholars and citations and so forth, which is pretty cool. Other things that are cool is that Google invited at the Google Webmaster conference we're doing for free in India right now and other places in Indonesia and stuff like that. They invited Bing's Webmaster Tools team to speak at their conference. They had a half-hour slot. Here is one of the speakers. I believe they invited 2 speakers to speak on that, which is very, very interesting. And finally, Google is launching their Ask Google Webmaster series. So all you have to do is use the hashtag, and here's Google posted a teaser where John Mueller will answer your questions around this series. So definitely take a look at that, and hopefully if you have questions, you can submit it to John Mueller that way, which is very, very interesting and very, very useful. In any event, thanks so much for listening to the Search Buzz video recap. My name again is Barry Schwartz. This is the search news we covered over at the Search Engine Roundtable at sroundtable.com. Again, today is Friday, July 26th. Everyone have a great weekend, and I'll see you guys next. Bye.